every shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Rise and grind, take flight. Hey, feel the unity, the proud's electrified. Under the stadium lights, religious thrive. Every touchdown, we're close to clock west. In Detroit, we stand. Get down there. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Football dreams in every shout.
All right. Good morning. Sorry, I cut the audio off there real quick. But good morning. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is Monday, January 13th. I've got a frog in my throat, so Eric, take it away.
Well, welcome, everybody. Doesn't it feel like a Victory Monday today? Even though it's not a Victory Monday, it feels like a Victory Monday. The Packers went packing, and the Commanders did what we needed them to do. They enabled us to get revenge on the 1991 NFC playoff game where they destroyed us. I think it was like 41-3. It was awful. It was horrible. It was one.
I think that, clearly the Bears made the wrong choice. Caleb might be something someday, but I'm telling you, man, Jayden Daniels is the guy, and what he's doing this season should give the Lions and Lions fans a little bit of concern for this weekend. I mean, the guy has incredible feet, and we're going to talk about all that here in a little bit, but we've also got, let's see, news and notes today. Is Mike Tomlin going to be done in Pittsburgh? We'll talk about that. Why the Packers lost should really be no surprise. To make matters worse, how did LaFleur kind of continue this laughing stock of a weekend when he hit the podium? And how about State Farm, man? They not only canceled everybody's policy in California, but they were able to manage getting the game together in 5 days for the Rams and the Vikings. We'll talk about how they did that. Are the Bills going to get revenge on the Ravens in the divisional round? And what did we really learn from this weekend? Who stood out? Who made their presence known? And we've got a couple of underdog stories, right? The Texans pulled one out. And we've got Lions news and notes. We're going to update the coaching carousel and what we know right now, what's going on with the Detroit Lions and the coordinators. And then there's another name that was thrown in the hat over the weekend that Eric will talk about. So we'll be talking about the replacements for Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, and then also the updates as to where they've been, what they've been doing the last few days. And we're going to do all that and more when we come back from this quick ad from one of our sponsors.
Every day, thousands of people are discovering Lights, Michigan's newest, funnest rock to go find on the shores of the Great Lakes. Don't go out with just any light. Try the Convoy C8 from Lights.com. It's guaranteed for life, and you'll find all the ones everyone else misses. Quality UV lights that are perfect for Lights with prices starting as low as $20. Please make sure to visit Lights.com for all your UV flashlight needs with the best guarantees on the market. Just what you wanted and not what you didn't. The best quality, the best guarantees, and the best UV flashlights from Lights.com.
All right, and we're back, and good morning, everybody in Detroit Lions land. So I've got one more thing for you to announce here. I've got an amazing partnership here with Dutch Pet. If you guys have not heard of Dutch Pet, it is something that I've used personally. We lost a pup last year, and Dutch Pet was very helpful in helping us find care and understand what we needed to do with our pup. But more importantly, man, this gives you telemedicine for your dog or your cat or your bird or your lizard or whatever you have at the comfort of your home. No more dragging your dog into the vet. No more putting your dog or your cat through all of that anxiety, right? You can get same-day access to licensed vets, unlimited pet visits and follow-ups throughout the annual subscription that you would buy, and guaranteed low prescription prices. And I can tell you, I just used Dutch Pet again this weekend, and for the cost of prescriptions and what it costs for the annual subscription was less than what it would have been for me to bring my pup into the vet in Byron Center. So if you want to get your pet looked at online with Dutch Pet, check out the link that'll be in the description. We're going to give you guys $50 off your annual subscription, which is normally $132. It's $82 today. I'm telling you, it's worth it. Anytime, any place that you need to talk to Dutch Pet, they're there for you. What a great partnership to have. So Eric, we had a wild weekend, man. Wild card weekend, to be honest with you. Texans pull one out, but more importantly, I want to talk about Mike Tomlin for just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mike Tomlin he's like the regular season champion. I mean, this guy continues to put his team in a winning position every year above 500 for like 18 seasons. Actually 18 consecutive seasons of non-losing seasons, but he just cannot get over the hump. He can't do anything in the postseason. He is now 16 years removed from a Super Bowl victory over Arizona. My question is he holding back the Steelers at this point? Is there another way around Mike Tomlin? Like, what do you do in Pittsburgh? Because you've got a guy that, I mean, he's an absolute hell of a motivator. You know, players love him, coaches love him. You know, the league loves him, fans love him. But what's wrong with him? You know, why can't he get his teams over the hump? You know, I don't think that there's anybody meddling with his job or, you know, the pulling the strings from behind the curtain or whatever. But what should they do next in Pittsburgh? I think it's going to be a question that may get answered this offseason. Does Tomlin just kind of bow out? Does he, you know, throw his hat in another race? Does he take a couple of seasons off? I don't know. What do you think about Mike Tomlin and what he's done in Pittsburgh? And you know, is he on the hot seat? I guess, even though it's really never been hot for him.
I would say no, he's not on the hot seat, because you have to look at it this way. For 32 years, the Detroit Lions made the playoffs, once or twice, and we didn't ever win a playoff game. Could you imagine if instead we had Mike Tomlin for a big stretch of that, and for 16 straight years we made the playoffs, but we never advanced more than one game in the playoffs? I think we would have taken it as Lions fans, because what we went through was such utter devastation, and just, we were the poorest of the poor. And we always said, I always said every year, if we can just get a ticket to the dance, you never know what can happen. So just being in the playoffs, to me, would be good enough, doing it that many years in a row.
Okay. I mean, I hear you about, you know, we would love to just had, you know, some winning seasons, right? More than what we had. I mean, we had an embarrassment of riches at times that we couldn't do anything with. But let me throw this at you. So if I remember correctly, Coach Caldwell was 36-28 as a Lions coach. Now, I think he was railroaded out of Detroit by the Quinn Tricia era.
Yes.
So he had a positive 563 record. And he had 2 playoff appearances?
Yes.
We weren't happy with that.
I was.
I was too. There was just a ton of fans that you could tell back at that time that were not happy with Coach Caldwell. And then it's like, you know, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, something that I've always said. And as soon as we get rid of Caldwell, I mean,
well,
I guess you got to make the big mistakes before you can get to the mountaintop, right? I mean, if it wasn't for the Quinn Tricia era, we wouldn't have Dan Campbell. So I guess there's that positive way to look at it. But go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Well, the problem with Caldwell the whole entire time was that he didn't have the killer instinct. He never put his foot on anyone's throat, ever. He was just too nice. So anytime there was an opportunity to take 3 points, he took it. I don't know as he ever went for it on 4th down unless he absolutely had to. So he's the complete polar opposite of what we have now in Dan Campbell.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, so back to Tomlin here. Is he holding back the Steelers? Is there another way around? You know, how do you do it? So during the first 10 seasons under Tomlin, 07 to 2016, the Steelers ranked tied for 5th with 8 postseason victories, and they are one of 8 teams without a playoff victory since, and in a span of 8 seasons. So also on that list, though, is the Washington Commanders, the Tampa Bay Bucks. Also on that list, after the Washington Commanders beat the Tampa Bay Bucks on Sunday night for the first playoff victory in nearly 2 decades. The Arizona Cardinals, they have a 9-year drought. The Carolina Panthers have a 9-year drought. The Broncos have a 9-year drought. The Bears, a 14-year drought. The Jets, 14 years. Vegas, 22 years for the Raiders. Miami, 24 years. Yeah, we say wow now, right? But we had a 30, you know, it was forever. A 30 some odd year, you know, drought of our own. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of wishy-washy on this one as far as do I think that Do I think that Tomlin, gets removed out of Pittsburgh? I don't. I feel like he's going to get at least one more crack at it. But then again, to someone's point in the chat, I mean, when you watch this game, it just seemed like Tomlin was in just la la land. Like he didn't show the emotion. He just didn't seem like his heart was in the game. And I'm not going to call someone's, heart out. Like, I mean, I respect the hell out of Mike Tomlin, what he's done in Pittsburgh, but it just sometimes, when you look at him, he just looks deflated. And I don't know if that's just the way that the game was going or if it's just maybe he's kind of lost that love and feeling. I don't know. But we'll find out soon enough, right? I mean, he's not in the race now, but could he be this week? Now that his team is done, team's going to come calling. I don't know. I do not know. How about this? Go ahead.
I did see a report that a team called to inquire about trading for Tomlin and that the Steelers told them no.
Interesting.
Yep.
Any idea what you would get for Tomlin? What do you think?
It'd have to be a second round pick.
How much did Peyton get? So Sean Payton, how much was that trade?
I don't remember.
It's kind of weird trading for coaches.
Yeah, well, his was different. He was retired, and then he went to the Broncos.
Yeah, but he was under under contract with the Saints.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look it up real quick here on the fly, but I guess I don't really know the answer. Anyway, we'll move on. All right, so why the Packers lost to the Eagles really shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, the Packers had a pretty rough season. Really rough season, to be honest. And, kind of up and down all over the place. We know Eric is the number one fan of the Packers, and I won't even go into the text message that was shared this weekend.
Hey now. We might have to address the elephant in the room. You can't read that out of context now. Come on.
Oh, anyway. All right. So Packers lost the Eagles, right? Like I said, shouldn't be a surprise. Now, Brandon McManus, knocks in a 26-yard chip shot, kind of floated through the uprights. This was late in the third quarter to give the Packers their first points of this game. And it's crazy. I read this morning that there was this loud, boisterous voice that just came out of nowhere when it was kind of quiet in that area. And they said, finally. And everyone's kind of looking around like, who just said that? I mean, everyone heard it. And it was kind of like this sarcastic, cheery type tone, according to The Athletic. And it happened to be the president of the Packers, Mark Murphy. He was sitting next to Brian Gutekunst, who is the GM, and both were watching the team, obviously watching the game, and they kind of watched this crumbling, of a playoff game in front of them, and and this guy is caught saying finally, like he, I mean, that's just kind of funny, right? I mean, I don't know what I would think if I watched the president of a team just get up and say something that you would expect him to say, All right, so the Packers, they've gone 14 consecutive seasons without a Super Bowl appearance. Their last three postseason stints have ended short of the NFC Championship game. This is one of their shortest stays since Matt LaFleur took over as head coach in 2019. Now, if you remember last year, the Packers beat the Cowboys, which nobody expected. I mean, it was a very dominant game for the Packers. Helped us out, obviously. But the team that calls themselves Title Town, they haven't won a division since 2021. They haven't won a Super Bowl since, 2012, I think, with Aaron Rodgers. And they've been through a 3-year spell now because of the Detroit Lions. And this ties their 2008 and to 2010 record as their longest drought in this century without a division title. And I will tell you this. I heard a phrase this weekend on social media, and I think it's correct. I think the Packers are going to have to get used to becoming a poverty franchise. Yep. They have never experienced it, but they're about to. I think that we're trading spaces here, the Lions and the Packers, and I don't want to be too, how do I say it? I don't want to gloat, or I don't want to be that guy, but I do believe that the Packers are in for the worst of a decade, probably of their their franchise. I don't think that they're going to be able to do much. I don't think LaFleur is the right coach, to be honest with you. So far, he's proven nothing to me, and honestly, I don't think he's proven anything to anybody else. And I don't buy into Jordan Love either. And I've said that from the very beginning, that I questioned his ability. I think he's got great talent. He's got great arm strength, but I don't think he's being led right. And I think it takes the right quarterbacks coach, takes the right offensive coordinator to really unlock the characteristics of a quarterback that can be great. I think that Jordan has the tools. I just don't think all those tools and the coaching are matching right now for the Green Bay Packers. Now, Eric, I know that this is a team that you absolutely despise. And anybody that watched this game or watched this season and the loss 22-10 against the Eagles this weekend, did you really think that it was a surprise? I mean, seeing that the Packers lost, or did you think it was a surprise that the Packers had as rough of a season as they did? And more importantly, was it a surprise that you thought you felt the Lions couldn't sweep them this season, but we did?
Not at all. Listen, I said they were making a mistake when they made Jordan Love the highest paid quarterback in the league at that time. So they gave him $60 million a year. I said, what did he do? He had one good little run in the playoffs, and that was it. And he likes to throw a lot of interceptions. And what happened? He came out this year, started throwing interceptions like crazy, and Matt LaFleur had to get it under control, right? So what did he do? He started utilizing Josh Jacobs. So he started utilizing the run game, and he ran the ball, and they threw the ball way, way less. And what happened when they got into the playoffs and the run game wasn't working? They had to throw the ball. Well, then two of their wide receivers go down. Their left tackle goes down, their center goes down, and Jordan Love just falls apart. That
was crushing to see, man.
Yeah, and injuries suck for any team. They really do, but you can't use it as an excuse. You can't. The Lions didn't use it as an excuse for a single game this year. So from now on, I will never use injury as an excuse of why I lost a game. Now, if Jordan Love would have went down with an injury, maybe you could say that. But all these other guys are role players. Jordan Love is your main guy. And he could not put the team on his shoulder. And do you remember when earlier in the season, every time Caleb Williams would get sacked or have a bad play, he'd always do the shrug his shoulders and put his head back. That's what Jordan Love was doing last night. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. And it's so it's so awesome to see that what I've been saying all year is coming to fruition. Matt LaFleur is not a good head coach, in my opinion. I don't like him. I hate his attitude. All the stuff he says towards the opposing teams, I don't like. I don't like him getting in fights with fans. And then Jordan Love. He fell apart exactly like I said he was going to fall apart. 3 interceptions in the playoff game versus the Eagles. And he should have had 4. There was another one that on the very first throw of the game went right into the defender's arms, and he flat out dropped it. So he could have had 4.
So I was putting a segment together this morning, which I didn't finish because it takes a lot of research, but I'm going to do it tonight. So I will do a show tonight. It'll be the weekly night show. And it's going to be sacks versus interceptions. Interceptions versus sacks. What was more important this weekend? We hear a lot of talk about sacks and edge rushers and this, that, and the other thing. Well, who was more important this weekend in the playoffs? Who's been more important in the playoffs and the championship games for many seasons? Well, I can give you an early hint. It's interceptions and turnovers. When you look at how many interceptions are thrown this weekend, it'll tell you something, how it affected the score. So I'm going to talk about that tonight. It's just going to take a little bit more research that I just couldn't pull it all together today. It was a lot of work. So Matt LaFleur kind of followed up this terrible season with a terrible, I guess, how do I put it? He went onto the mic last night in the post-game press conference, and to really make matters worse, he kind of continued this laughing matter, I guess, if you will, if people are laughing at the Packers, and he kind of knocked everything off the podium. He knocked over the Gatorade bottle, a metal cup, and just made this really loud clanging noise. I mean, what a way to end a season, right? Where you just clumsy as all get out. You kind of had a clumsy season. And I think it really echoed his season, clumsy. I think that's a good word to describe, a very good word to describe the Packers season this year was clumsy. Anyway, we'll move on. But before we do, is LaFleur on the hot seat?
I believe so. So while posting an 11-6 record is an impressive feat, Green Bay was putrid in playoff games. Will Packers fire Matt LaFleur? It does not appear as though LaFleur is on the hot seat yet. But in my opinion, he should be. LaFleur signed a contract extension in 2022 to remain with the team and lead Jordan Love. And considering how young the Packers are, in most scenarios, a coach would not be close to being on the hot seat. Green Bay greatly surpassed expectations in 2023 by becoming the 7th seed and winning a playoff game. But in 2024, it was another step in the wrong direction. And I don't care what anyone says. You go talk to any Green Bay Packer fan right now. They are not a fan of Matt LaFleur and his decision-making in this game yesterday.
Yeah, I think he made some bad decisions, but I also think that, he got one of our loyalty members' tickets taken away this year because he kind of pressed the situation at, the Packers and Lions game in Ford Field this year, where one of the guys, that was holding the flag kind of got into it. He was just kind of having fun, I think. And yeah, he admits that he maybe took it a little bit too far, but had Matt LaFleur not done what he did, maybe it doesn't escalate.
Well, LaFleur charged at the guy. The guy never charged at LaFleur. He just stood there holding the flag, saying a bunch of stuff. I don't think words should get you kicked out of a game.
I'm surprised he held his composure. I'm sorry. If you charge at me, I mean, I think it's just human nature. If something is charging at you, that you're going to defend yourself immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that you're taught when, I take pew classes, right? And during that whole lesson, it was, the whole charging situation. You just got to say stop 3 times, then you can do what you need to do. But yeah, he shouldn't have charged at him. I think it escalated the situation. LaFleur's an ass, in my opinion, but I doubt he gets removed from Packers this year. Maybe next year. If they go through the same thing again next year, I think it's probably going to come down next year.
Yeah. Well, he's another one, kind of like Tomlin, but LaFleur, listen, he's made, in his 6 seasons, he's made 2 NFC championship games. He's lost in the divisional round twice. He's missed the playoffs 1 time, and he lost in the wild card 1 time. That's a pretty good record. It's a damn good record, but the problem is they got in because of why. If you really look at it, the NFC North sucked. Yeah.
So when you're consistently the best team in a division that is terrible,
yes,
it's pretty easy to make it, right? And I'm not taking any credit away from what they did in the past or what Aaron Rodgers did. Well, but they clearly were heads and shoulders above the rest of the NFC North for a long time. The Bears never got their act together. The Lions, we know, never got their act together until 2022, really. And the Minnesota Vikings, I mean, they're just, you just never know what you're going to get with them. They're kind of in the same boat that the Lions fans are, but yet they've had more success than we have, but they always get their, the heart ripped out at the last second. It'd be interesting to see what happens tonight.
Yeah. LaFleur also, for his first 4 seasons, had Aaron Rodgers, and he has him no longer.
That's correct. I mean, Aaron is basically a head coach playing quarterback. I mean, the guy knows everything about the game. I'm sure that he was probably leading LaFleur at times, but they butted heads. They didn't get along.
Nope.
All right, next up, how did State Farm pull the rug out on all of those homeowners in California? But then they get awarded the game on Monday night. Now, I'm sure there's nothing to it, right? There's no conspiracy here, right? I'll let you be the judge. I'm sure there's a lot that can be pointed. Now, I listened to a lot of things this weekend, obviously read a lot this weekend, and there's a lot more to this story than than I think what meets the eye, and when this really started for all these insurance companies pulling out. It's been going on for years, and they kind of warned California, do something about it, because all it takes is a spark. And I listened to who was it that I heard this weekend? Was it Quaid? I think it was Dennis Quaid that happened to do an interview, and yeah, they caught him doing an interview. He was packing up his car. And then later he said something like, look, this has been going on for a long time. Like, the wind just blows the right way, and we're all going to get burned up. And even Joe Rogan said something, and I think back in July, where he was talking about the same thing. Like, like these embers are just kind of flying. Like, every house around him years ago, like 4 or 5 got burned to the ground. Somehow his house didn't. And when you look at the images, man, you'll see, like, there's a house that's not touched, and then everything around it's gone. And then there's a house that's not touched, and everything's around it's gone. But anyway, I'm not going to go into the whole political thing here, but the insurance companies that pulled out, one of them was State Farm, and they've been doing this for a while. And they were awarded the game tonight for the Minnesota Vikings and the Rams. So how did they get it done so quickly? Well, I guess it's something that's thought about well in advance. If there's an issue, potential, with where a game could end up, I guess the NFL has all these backup plans that are just ready to roll. And it just so happened that Brian McCarthy, the NFL's vice president of communications, says that many years we don't even think about this, right? Other years there will be inclement weather that's forecasted, and we'll begin a process that you may not ever hear about. But we need to be prepared. It's something that we always talk about. So the wildfires that began to rage around the LA area, the NFL decided on Thursday last week to move the game to SoFi Stadium, 380 miles, move the game from SoFi Stadium, 380 miles east to State Farm Stadium in Glendale. So this is something that they've been prepared for. It's part of their preparedness plan. So I've heard all the conspiracy theories, right, this weekend. And then I read into this a little bit more. And this is something that the NFL's been doing. Every year they look at every game situation, especially in areas where there could be inclement weather. I'm sure wildfires aren't always on the list, but they kind of have to be in California. Hell, they'd probably even have to be in Arizona, but that's how they were able to get this done so quickly. Now, State Farm Stadium was not scheduled to host another major event until February 1st. So they had the Monster Energy AMA Supercross Championship, and then the NFL needed to prepare to feed 60,000 people tonight. On a normal game day, Dalton said that State Farm Stadium goes through 4,500 orders of chicken fingers, 3,000 hamburgers, 5,500 individual pizzas, 10,000 hot dogs, and 3,500 pounds of corn kernels for popcorn. 3,500 pounds of corn kernels. And then the Cardinals worked out a deal with Kraft Culinary Concepts to quickly stock their stadium shelves and get things rolling. So they're ready to go for tonight. I'm not going to get all strung up into the conspiracy theories, but somehow State Farm wins again, I guess. So anyway, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I have a conspiracy theory for you.
Okay.
I just looked at Ticketmaster. It's $157 to go see that game tonight. $157.
So I don't understand. So what's going on with all the people that had tickets the original game? They should already have tickets into this game, right? Their tickets are swapped.
Yeah.
I think they automatically get a ticket. They probably get a compensating seat, you would think, or maybe they had to return all the money for the tickets. See, this is something I don't know. Did they return all the money and then they have to go repurchase tickets for those that can go to the game?
They'd have to do something because seating is going to be different. It's not going to be the same. You know what I mean? One stadium to the next, you're not going to have the same sections. You're not going to have the same things.
So here we go. Here it is. SoFi Stadium did issue refunds or credits to ticket holders for the Rams-Vikings wildcard game that was moved from SoFi Stadium to Arizona State Farm. So kind of like what they do with Lions, season ticket holders. If you pre-buy into tickets for postseason, and like they were pre-selling tickets for a wild card game, just in case the Lions, somehow had to be in the wild card game.
Yeah.
And what they would do is they would refund that money to non-season ticket holders, right? If you were able to get into it as a non-season ticket holder, but season ticket holders, they will actually take that money and credit it towards your next year's, your season ticket dues. So that's what they did at SoFi. And then for the people that were non-season ticket holders, they just got a direct refund. So for all of those people that made travel plans or whatever, kind of like what you said last week, Eric, like if they didn't have insurance on their travel plans, and they're kind of screwed. So I doubt that there's going to be any sort of political, bills or laws or anything that's going to help, everybody at some point. The word escapes me. It's like FEMA, but it's not going to be FEMA for your airline ticket. You're going to be out. So what did we learn this weekend? We had a pretty wild weekend, Eric. Some good games, some very boring games. But what did we learn this weekend? I guess I'll start with you, and then I'm going to walk right into. I'm going to start with the Commanders and work my way down.
Well, the AFC, I watched all the games, but they didn't do anything for me. All three of those games were blowouts. I really didn't learn anything. The only team that won that I didn't think was going to win was the Texans, and they looked pretty good. The defense won the day, I think, for them and Baltimore. Those two, the defenses really shined this weekend.
Real quick, I'm going to go ahead and turn ads off. You guys did an excellent job at almost getting to 100 likes so far, but if you want to go ahead and tap that like button real quick, we'll get all these ads turned off for you guys for the rest of the show. So about an hour and a half here. You'll be ad-free for the rest of the day. And please do us another favor. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel yet, we're every 250 subscribers that we get now, we're going to be giving away a mini helmet that's signed by Panay Sewell, Chris Spielman. I've been doing it all season. Every 500 subscribers, we've given over 20 of these things away this season. I want to give another 20 away. So jump back out real quick, subscribe, and like the stream, and then you'll be in the running. You just gotta be a member, right? Or not really a member. You just got to be a subscriber, and then be in when we're live to get an opportunity to win a mini helmet. Lanner 420X won it last week, and he was already in the mail on the next day, so he's good to go. So you were talking about the AFC blowouts. It was kind of right?
Yeah, it wasn't fun to watch. I had no skin in the game.
Now, I felt like some of these games were, blowouts a little bit later, but the Bills, I mean, they had an excellent game. They played really well. So let me talk about Jayden Daniels for a moment. What do we learn about Jayden Daniels? Because this is going to be the biggest game that we need to worry about, right? Is Jayden Daniels coming into Ford Field. The Lions have historically had issues with mobile quarterbacks. Matter of fact, I don't know any team that really hasn't had issues with mobile quarterbacks. When you look at the dynamic, and we'll break it down towards the end of the week, but when you look at the dynamic of what Washington is bringing into Ford Field, I will say that I'm not as concerned if it would have been the Vikings, right, or the Rams. I'm way less concerned about the Commanders. However, they do have a pretty potent offense, and Jayden Daniels is the leader of that. So Jayden Daniels is absolutely not an average rookie. So I've been talking about rookie quarterbacks for a couple of seasons now. I've done the work. I've done the math. We've done the research. And when you look at first-round draft picks, it doesn't matter where you pick, just first round. Hardly ever do any of them ever make the playoffs in their first season. Lamar Jackson was the last one to do it before then C.J. Stroud last season. And now Jayden Daniels this season. So 2 years in a row, a rookie quarterback taken in the first round has made the playoffs. To make matters better, Jayden Daniels won, which never happens, right? It usually takes 2.5 to 3 seasons, 2.5 because of the math, but about 3 seasons before a first round drafted quarterback will win a playoff game. If they even make the playoff game, they have to make it first. Yeah. So it's pretty incredible that he's been able to, lead this Commanders team all season the way that he has. He's different. When they say that he's different, I mean, he's really different. So I got this quote from Alex Anzalone this weekend, and I'm going to apply it towards Jayden Daniels. And this is what Alex Anzalone said.
Everyone wants to be a dog until you got to do some dog shit.
Jayden Daniels absolutely dropped some dog shit on everybody last night. That guy and his legs, the way that he moved around that pocket and extended plays, he's going to be a tough nut to crack on Saturday night. But I think the Lions are up to the challenge. Now, we already knew to some extent, kind of just as we did with C.J. Stroud at the close of the 2023 season, that playoff football can be a different animal. And going to Tampa to face Todd Bowles, defense and high-flying Baker Mayfield, and Baker's been playing exceptional football. Wasn't necessarily going to be a walk in the park for Jayden. Just wasn't. But Daniels never blinked. He looked confident. He looked poised. And even while, going through some of these red zone hiccups, he outlasted Mayfield and essentially carried Cliff Kingsbury's entire attack on his back and gave Washington its first playoff victory since 2005. This dude's going to be a force in the NFL. Again, I'm going to go back and say it one more time. There's a reason why he was my number one quarterback pick in the draft this last season. The tape just said it all. It clearly did. When you looked at Jayden Daniels versus Caleb Williams versus anybody else, Bo Nix, I don't care who, J.J. McCarthy, Jayden Daniels was the guy. And I think he's proved it. So what did you learn from Jayden Daniels this weekend?
Well, Jayden Daniels to me is the light version of Josh Allen. He can make things happen with his feet. So this is only going to be the second very instinctual mobile quarterback that we are going to face this year. So this guy is a lot like Josh Allen. So I would go back as the Lions and rewatch that Bills game and then watch every Bills game I can and see what worked against the guy and what didn't, because that's what's going to work against this rookie. Is we're going to have to stop him. He loves to run this one certain play, and they do it over and over and over again. And that's I don't know if you call it the halfback option, where the quarterback runs to his right with a guy trailing or a guy out in front of him. And then he has the option to either pitch the ball to the guy, throw the ball, or run with the ball himself. So he's got three options on every play. And yeah, he's stringing it out to the right, and he does it to the right every single time. And I noticed he likes to run to the right. He does not like to run to the left. So whoever has I guess you would call it the left end, is going to have quite the assignment. You have to keep contained on this guy. Keep him in the pocket. He can't string that play out.
Yeah, so generally a right-handed quarterback is going to roll right.
Yep.
He does not like to roll left. He's throwing cross body, which if you watch any tape at all on Daniels this year, he's not the greatest at throwing cross body, putting his feet, in putting his feet in the ground and actually making a good throw when he rolls left. And I'll look more at that this weekend before we really break it down on Thursday and Friday. But, watching him lead the Commanders last night in that game-winning drive, it's just, the dude just made play after play after play. Mm-hmm. And the confidence there. And then, of course, who makes that catch at the end? A guy that was on our team last year, Zach Ertz.
Yep.
So, just what an exclamation point on an incredible game for Daniels last night. He's 24 of 35, 268 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. And then he led the team in rushing with 36 yards. So I think that there's the caveat. And again, we'll break it down more as we get in, to Thursday and Friday segments. But the Lions have done pretty well against mobile quarterbacks this season. I'm glad that we've had some experience against mobile quarterbacks this season, Baker Mayfield being one of them. So the question is going to be, how are they going to be able to sell out on the run and cover Jayden Daniels and maintain their assignments against, the pass game? How are they going to be able to drop Branch into the box or Iffy into the box or both to cover both sides of Jayden Daniels? And again, the Tampa Bay Bucks have one of the better pass rush, combos in the league this year. They're not the best. They couldn't do anything to Daniels. It's all about containment when you have mobile quarterbacks. You want to contain these guys. You don't really want to get after them. You want to contain him, make him beat you with his arm. But at the same point, you need to have some pretty good sticky corners and really good safeties. You're probably going to have to play in a too high zone, which I think the Lions will probably do again. You'll probably see a very similar defense that we ran against the Vikings against the Commanders.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like we have to do something different in this game that they probably haven't seen, and I'll talk about that on Thursday. But let me pull up his stats real quick, or the game stats, as we're walking through the wild card weekend here.
I will say I didn't see Jayden Daniels throwing the ball into danger very often yesterday. Most of his throws, if they were tight windows, he was throwing it where basically only his guy could get it. I didn't see a whole bunch of passes that the defense dropped an interception yesterday.
Well, they were able to get some pretty good separation yesterday.
Yeah.
I was actually pretty surprised at how much separation that they were able to pull off. Just taking a quick look here at the stats from yesterday between these two guys. So Jayden Daniels had a time to throw of 2.82 seconds, which is about the same as what Jared Goff has averaged this season. Baker Mayfield had 2.7 seconds. Both let up 1 sack in the game. 35.9% pressure rate on Jayden Daniels, so 14 pressures provided by the Bucs. I mean, that's not a terrible game. And then they were playing with more containment too yesterday, but for whatever reason, Jayden was able to squirt out and get loose. Now, he didn't have any big explosive plays on the ground, which was good, right? If we were to contain Jayden to 36 yards on the ground, I'd be happy with that. But the point is Austin Eckler going to be contained? Right? Is Brian Robinson going to be contained? Those are the questions that are going to have to be answered. Now, through the air, Terry McLaurin, he had 89 yards on the day, 1 TD. Dyami Brown had 89 yards and 1 TD. Both had pretty solid games. Terry McLaurin was targeted 10 times, caught 7. Dyami Brown is 5 for 5, 100% on the day. Austin Eckler was used a little bit out of the backfield. He was targeted 4 times, had 3 catches for 26 yards. And Zach Ertz, he was targeted 4 times, 2 receptions. And I thought Zach had the touchdown in the end. Didn't he not have a touchdown in the end?
I thought he did.
I thought he did too. Or was that a 2-point conversion?
Receiving. No, the 2 receiving touchdowns were McLaurin and Brown.
Dyami Brown, but I could have sworn that Zach Ertz caught that ball at the end.
Yeah, no, there was only 2 touchdowns. And then the rest was all field goals.
I don't know what I'm watching then.
No. Zach Ertz caught that ball to get them in field goal range to kick that game-winning kick. And man, what a kick that was. Hits the crossbar or the upright and then bounces in. Oh, man.
So, yeah, Jayden Daniels getting these guys into field goal position, trying to get them lined up, and then he goes and banks it off a goalpost. I'm like, oh, no. I thought it was going to bounce out. I thought that this game was going to flip upside down on the Commanders. I'm glad that we're playing the Commanders. I think that this is the best path for the Lions right now is to go through the Commanders, and then we'll get into the other games too. But I think it's also whoever wins tonight. If they take out the Eagles, I'm not mad. But after watching the way that the Eagles played last night, I wasn't impressed. I wasn't impressed at all. So I guess we'll move into that. Let's move into the Eagles. So what did we learn about the Eagles? What did you learn?
I learned that the Eagles play pretty darn dirty. Did you see how many players for the Packers that went out on a stretcher basically yesterday? It was nuts.
I mean, I didn't see, I guess I can watch it again today, but I didn't see anything that was egregious or intentional, but that doesn't mean that I was really paying great attention to it.
No, it just, how many guys can go out in one game?
I don't know. The Lions have been doing it all year.
Yeah, it was a very much a mash unit by the end of that game. And it just seemed like all weekend, a lot of people were getting hurt in every game. Mm-hmm. And even one of the Commanders guys, Payne there, his finger went the wrong way. And it just seemed like so many people were playing their absolute hardest they've ever played in their life, because this is do or die time now.
Right.
And they don't take it easy in these games. So I think you are going to see more injuries in these playoff games. And it might get even worse as we go into the later games here. It's just they're putting everything on the line, because this is it. There's no looking back. You got to give it everything you have now, or else you're not going to get another chance.
Well, here's what I learned. I learned that Josh Jacobs is still Josh Jacobs. And I also learned that Saquon Barkley is Saquon Barkley. Saquon last night rallied up 119 yards on the ground against the Packers. And Barkley now sits at 2,124 rushing yards on the season, which is fifth most by any player in a season in NFL history, including the postseason. I was not impressed with the Eagles' play. I really wasn't. I felt like the Lions would have done a better job than the Packers last night, for sure. And that's not being biased. I just saw opportunity where the Packers they fell apart. They folded like a tent last night. And I'm not saying that this is going to be the same game in the NFC Championship where the Eagles are going to play that way, because I think the Eagles are going to get better as they win, because Hurts is going to get better. He's still coming out of this concussion protocol where it took him a little bit longer than normal to come out of. So I'm not so positive or I'm not so sure last night that he was feeling the greatest. Does that make sense? I still feel like he was a little bit off. Between him and Jordan Love. I mean, obviously Jordan Love had the worst of the two games, but Jalen Hurts was very efficient in passing from a clean pocket. Now, in the Eagles' win last night over the Packers, he completed 10 of 12 for 108 yards. Now, the question is, and this is why I was more nervous of having to take on the Eagles in the championship game. When you think about having to cover Barkley and Hurts coming out of the backfield, and then you have, Brown. Sorry. Hold on here. Something just popped up on my screen. One second here.
I will say this about the game yesterday. Jordan Love had a lot of open receivers and did not hit them. I think he was kind of like Sam Darnold in the seeing ghosts in yesterday's game.
The game just seemed too big. So where I was going with this is, you have to cover Barkley and Jalen Hurts coming out of the backfield. And that's a tall task for any team this season. But then you have to deal with Brown and Smith and Dotson, in the passing game. And the Dallas Goedert's one of the better tight ends in the league. So they are just as loaded as the Lions are. I hate to say it. The difference is Jalen Hurts can move with his feet. Jared Goff doesn't. Jared Goff needs that pocket. Yes, he can roll out. And I expect that, Jared Goff probably get a little bit more mobile in the playoffs. Probably see some more boots, some naked boots, whatever. And I expect to see some of that from Goff. I expect to see him to be more mobile and not just sitting comfortably in the pocket. He's going to want to move. But Jalen Hurts, man, you allow this guy to move and he can hurt you. I mean, just like his last name says. So last night he had 3.24 seconds of time to throw.
Wow.
He was only sacked twice. Both players sacked twice. 11 pressures on the game for both players. Again, according to NFL Pro Stats. But Jalen Hurts only had one explosive play on the ground. He was also held to 36 yards on the ground last night, just like Jayden Daniels. And he really didn't do a ton in the pass game. I mean, when you look at the stats overall, it's not exciting. It's really not. 46 yards for hold on here. I needed to separate. Why won't it separate? There we go. 55 yards to Devonta Smith, 47 yards to Dallas Goedert, 11 yards to Dotson, only 10 yards to A.J. Brown. But you know the difference for A.J. Brown last night? Downfield blocking. That guy was putting himself out there, just like Jameson does, just like Amon-Ra St. Brown does. And Tom Brady actually had a really good quote last night. He said there's a difference between, champions and stars. Champions are going to do whatever they have to do to win the game. Stars, maybe not. I thought that was an excellent quote last night. And I started thinking about all the champions on the Lions team. Like, man, Amon-Ra's a champion. Jamel's a champion. Gibbs is a champion. Montgomery is a champion. All these guys will go out and do whatever they have to do to win the game. And that's just the offensive side of the football. We have a bunch of champions on the defensive side of the football, too, that have to do what they have to do to win the game. So I wasn't excited, about the Eagles game last night. I feel like there was I guess not really a lot to be taken from this game. I don't know what we really learned or what the Lions are going to learn from this game, because it almost seemed like too vanilla for me. They just didn't do a whole lot that, I don't know. It didn't show me anything to be worried about, but I hate to say that, because if we do see the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, we do need to be worried. That is going to be a very tough game. They have one of the better defenses in the league, but they only got to Jordan Love twice last night. And I think that, whether you get to him or not, it did not make a difference in the game at all. It just didn't.
Yep.
So Jordan Love last night, 20 of 33. Jalen Hurts, 13 of 21. 131 yards on the night through 2 TDs. Jordan Love, 3 interceptions. And see, that's where this game separated itself to the Eagles. Those interceptions are what put the Eagles into the driver's seat.
Yep.
And again, I'm going to break it all down tonight in Rock Down Detroit Lions. We'll talk about it tonight. I think that's going to be topic number 1, is interceptions versus sacks, and the difference in the wild card in the playoffs. And I've been looking at this for the last many seasons at, the Super Bowl winners and how many sacks they have versus interceptions, or, how many sacks they have, period. And do they help the teams win? And I think you're going to be surprised at what I found out. Josh Jacobs last night had a good night for Josh Jacobs. 18 attempts, 81 yards on the ground. Just wasn't enough. So who are you worried about? I guess, what else did you learn in this game? Who are you worried about if the Lions have to take on the Eagles in 2 games?
Eagles? I think the Lions would have a very good plan for the Eagles. I think we match up very well against the Eagles. Before watching them yesterday, I didn't have high hopes for our Lions against the Eagles, but now after watching them, if you can shut down their run game, their passing game does not scare me whatsoever. 131 yards, didn't throw the ball much, wasn't very effective throwing the ball. In the second half, that is when Saquon Barkley came on. In the first half, he didn't do anything. In the second half is where he got all his yardage and did all of his damage once they had a little bit of a lead, and they were basically just running the ball and running the clock out because they had so many possessions, because they were getting turnovers. Now their defense, on the other hand, is kind of scary. Their defense is pretty good, but Darius Slay went out for a little bit in this game. And then Dean looks like he may be done. He hurt his knee in that game and did not come back to the game. So he is one of their important players on defense, and that could be big for them.
Yeah, Nakobe Dean, good player.
Yep.
Good player. Definitely
That
needed.
was somebody we wanted,
Yeah, I was definitely interested in Nakobe Dean, but it wasn't as high as what some people were thinking. I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. I would have taken Jack Campbell all day. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. But Dean was all over the field yesterday before he was taken out of the game. And he had a previous knee injury and re-aggravated it yesterday. So it's looking like he may not be back for the rest of the playoffs.
So prior to this game, you had Lewis Sign that was out, safety. You had Nick Gates, their center, was out. Trevor Keegan, their guard, was out. Darian Kennard, their offensive tackle, was out. Tanner McKee, their backup quarterback, was out. Eli Ricks, a cornerback, was out. And then you had Anis Smith, or Aeneas, I don't even know how to say his name. A. Smith, wide receiver, he was out. Coach's decision. He was inactive for Sunday's NFC wildcard game against the Packers. And then Nakobe Dean last night was questionable with the knee. He has been ruled out for the rest of the game, but he's questionable heading into this week. So, last night, the Eagles did one thing right away, which was set the tone. And it was on the first play of the game. I mean, they who was that? Oren Burks last night just lowered the boomstick on Keeson Nixon, who lost control of the ball. So when we talk about turnovers versus sacks, this is how you start the game. And that led to an Eagles touchdown right away. So turnovers are so important in the game of football. The more turnovers that you can get, the more offense of opportunities that you're going to have. And last night, it proved that again, how important turnovers are. So next up, let's talk about the Texans.
Sure.
What did you learn?
I learned that the Texans surprised me yesterday. I did not see them winning that game. I truly did not. I thought that Jim Harbaugh had the experience, finally had the right quarterback and the right running backs to win this game, and they just came out flat.
So I picked the Texans to win last night, and I expected them to win last night. I do agree with you that Harbaugh's experience matters. It does matter. But I think that the defense of the Texans matched with an offense that can be explosive was what was going to be able to win this game. And Herbert last night completely melted down. Again, we're talking turnovers that won this game for the Texans. Quickly, we'll get into some of the insights of last night's game. And here you go. Justin Herbert was pressured on 19 of 36 dropbacks last night, 52.8% in the Chargers wild card loss to the Texans. He completed only 3 of 15 passes when pressured for 103 yards, with 86 yards coming on a touchdown to Ladd McConkey and 2 interceptions and 4 sacks. Now, Herbert faced 11 quick pressures last night, including 5 unblocked pressures, resulting in his highest quick pressure rate faced in any career regular season or postseason game. The unblocked pressures usually come from what the offense is doing, right? So the scheme that they're running, somebody might be unblocked, but the play didn't go well, right? So obviously didn't work out in Justin Herbert's favor. Now, the heavy pressure correlated with an average time to throw of 3.5 seconds, though. How on earth did he have 3.5 seconds of time to throw with all of that pressure and still throw all of those interceptions? The guy clearly was seeing double last night because he did not have a good game. Justin Herbert imploded. Just a terrible game for this dude. Yeah. Nico Collins approved once again why he is so important to Stroud. Nico Collins set a new Texans playoff record last night with 122 receiving yards, and he passed DeAndre Hopkins' record of 118 in the 2019 divisional round playoff game. CJ Stroud had a perfect 158.3 passer rating when targeting Collins in the game. Now, if you remember when we talked about the Texans, when we matched up against the Texans this year, I said how important that Collins was going to be for Stroud. And if I remember correctly, he wasn't in that game.
No, he didn't play.
So, I mean, if we have to go up against the Texans at some point, which I don't think is going to happen, Nico Collins is a dynamic player that relies on Stroud, and Stroud relies on him. And I think that that's what you saw last night. I mean, those two working their magic last night. It worked. CJ Stroud generated a majority of his production in the Texans wild card win when targeting in breaking routes. He completed 13 of 16 passes last night for 223 yards and a touchdown. Stroud finished with the second most yards targeting in breakers in a game in his career, including the playoffs. Now, Stroud was also very efficient when he was kept clean, which I don't know how many quarterbacks aren't, but he was. Texas defense had a standout performance last night, allowing a minus 0.58 EPA per play, the fourth fewest by any defense in a game this season, and the fewest by any defense in a playoff game in the next-gen stats era since 2016. The Texans' pass rush was able to pressure Justin Herbert on half of his dropbacks. Led by Will Anderson, he had 7 pressures, 1.5 sacks, and Danico Autry had 5 pressures and 1 sack, and Danielle Hunter had 5 pressures. The Texans' cornerbacks also played tight coverage with Derek Stingley Jr. and Kamari Lassiter. I love Kamari Lassiter. Combining for 7 tight windows and 3 interceptions on 15 targets last night. The Lions missed out on Kamari Lassiter. I don't know how, and I hope that Ennis Rakestraw proves to be just as good, but Kamari Lassiter has shown, I mean, dude is just amazing. Just watching him play this season, every game that I've seen of him, every highlight that I've seen, really good dude. Like, really, really, really good player. Joe Mixon last night finished with, I'm sorry, let me back up here. Oh, where's Joe Mixon? Sorry. All right, Joe Mixon finished last night with 25 attempts on 106 yards for the night. 1 TD, 4.2 yards per carry. He had a long run, 1 explosive last night of 17 yards. CJ Stroud, 22 of 33, 282 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception, 90.7 passer rating last night. Justin Herbert on the other side, 14 of 32. Just god awful. 43.8% completion rate, 40.9 passer rating. Just god awful for Herbert last night. And I think that's why they lost. So here's my question to you, Eric. With the way that this Texans defense played last night, they should win that side of the race this year, right? You would think.
You would think with that defense, but it just depends on what CJ Stroud can do. So I got a fun little fact about CJ Stroud. He's the first quarterback to win a playoff game in each of his first 2 seasons. And another fun fact, Herbert only threw 3 interceptions the entire season and threw 4 interceptions yesterday, more than he threw in the entire season. So that just tells you how ferocious this Texans defense is.
So I don't know if it was ferociousness because the dude had 3.5 seconds almost of time to throw.
Yeah.
Like that is an eternity in the NFL. I don't get it. How do you have it's 3.47. How do you have 3.47 seconds, but yet you're pressured on half of your dropbacks? You're sacked 4 times or 3 times, whatever it was. You threw 4 interceptions. It doesn't make any sense to me.
But that's an average. How much time did he have to throw on the throws that he threw an interception on?
We'll find out tonight. Trust me.
Yeah.
We'll find out tonight.
See, I can't look up that kind of stuff. I don't know.
It takes a lot of reading and research, man. You got to watch tape too. And you got to find it. I got to go in and watch every pass and break it down. Joe Alt, man, what an incredible dude this is. I mean, I'm glad to see that he had a great season, but last night he allowed a pressure rate of 6.9% when aligned at the right tackle this season, 8th lowest among players. I'm sorry, he allowed a 6.9% pressure rate this season when aligned at the right tackle position, 8th lowest among players with at least 200 pass block snaps at that position. And last night kind of felt like he was struggling a little bit. So the Texans kind of unlocked something, figured out something about Joe Alt or this Texans or this Chargers offensive line because they were able to affect, some of the passes. I mean, I'm not going to say that they weren't, they did. Yep. But it's to the point that I don't understand how Herbert has that much time to throw and just couldn't do anything with the ball besides throw it to the other team. So where I was going with this is, I mean, with the Texans defense being that good, I would expect for them to wrap up the AFC.
Yeah.
If defense is going to win championships in 2024, I don't think that you can doubt. I mean, who has the best defense right now? Is it the Bills, the Ravens, the Texans, the Chiefs on the AFC side? Who would have the best defense?
I would say the Texans.
You would think. I mean, they definitely went all out in free agency and spent a boatload of money bringing guys in. Daniil Hunter, they got Danico Autry, right? You would think that defense should go all the way if defense wins championships. That's if. That's a big if. All right, so next up, who do we got? We're going to talk about the Ravens bullying the Steelers last night. So we talked about the Steelers a little bit to start the day, but what did you learn?
I learned that the Ravens are for real. The Ravens just, they had no problem, no issue at all yesterday or the day before yesterday. None whatsoever. They looked brutally good. Derrick Henry is a beast. I
don't know.
I don't know how I don't know how anybody stops them. I truly believe, I going into the playoffs, I thought for sure it was going to be Kansas City, but I might have to change my mind. Maybe this weekend will change my mind with them playing the Bills, but I might have to go. It might be Ravens and Lions in the Super Bowl this year.
I'm telling you right now, the Bills are going to win. I'm telling you,
okay.
Hands down, Bills are going to win.
I hope so.
Hands down. Can I be stupidly serious for a moment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would rather play the Ravens.
Well, yeah.
I see.
I'd rather play the Bills again.
Nope. I would rather play the Ravens, and I'll explain why if they win. If they don't, I'll still explain why later. But
okay,
I would rather play the Ravens. I mean, what we saw last night. Look, if the Ravens are that dominant, I don't think that the Steelers really hung around, as much as they did early in this game. I think that the Ravens would have got out and just pounced them and been done with it.
Yeah.
Let me look at this real quick. Let me look at.
So Michael Lucci says Mahomes and the refs will come through for KC.
Probably.
That's one thing.
Yeah, Michael Lukey's. Yeah. So, I mean, the Ravens scored. They got the first touchdown in the game in the first quarter. They scored 2 in the second quarter. So up 21, 0 at half. The Steelers come out and score 14 unanswered in the third. The Ravens scored 1 more touchdown in the third, and then nobody scored in the fourth. So if the Ravens are that dominant, I feel like they're going to at least score in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to put up a goose egg. The Lions are going to score in every quarter, for sure. I think that there's less to the Ravens than there is to the Bills. I think that the Bills and their offense, they are more predicated on a high-flying offense. They're trying to win shootouts. I don't believe in the Bills' defense. But when you have a high-flying offense and then you have somebody like Josh Allen, who, I'm sorry, I think that Josh Allen is way better. You guys aren't going to agree with me. Way better than Lamar Jackson is on the ground. I think that Josh Allen's way better.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and that's part of the reason why I'd rather see the Ravens versus the Bills is I don't want to have to go up against Josh Allen's feet again.
Yeah.
And then his off-target throw or his off-schedule throws that, I plan on talking about here in a minute when we talk about the Bills, but
I'll say this, though, with the Bills, if we were to go up against the Bills again, we have something now that we didn't have when we played the Bills, and that's Alex Anzalone. I think he would have made it.
Everyone wants to be a dog until you got to do some dog shit.
That guy, we got that guy back.
And I think just him, we lost by 1 score. Just him makes the difference in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that 1,000%. I believe that Thor would have knocked down, Allen at least a couple of times. It would have changed the scope of that game.
Yeah.
But before we get way off target here, we'll talk about the Ravens and the Steelers matchup. So the Ravens kind of bullied the Steelers in the beginning of this game. It was too big of a deficit for the Steelers to come back from. And, really, did it show the rushing attack is nothing to mess with in Baltimore? You got quarterback Lamar Jackson and running back Derrick Henry. There might be enough on their own to carry the Ravens deep into the playoffs, but is it enough? And they showed Saturday, in a 28-14 thumping of the Steelers, the thunder and lightning duo of Lamar and Henry is maybe just too much for some teams to deal with. I don't think it's too much for the Lions, but I'll talk about that another day. Now, they posted a team postseason record of 299 yards.
Wow.
I mean, how could they not stop them at all? If that's all they're going to try to do is run, how could you not stop them at all?
Yeah.
At all. I mean, it's like they just, here you go, doors open, run, go for it. Derrick Henry, 26 attempts, 186 yards, 7.2 yards per carry, 2 TDs on the day. When I watched Derrick Henry running during this game, it's like the players did not want to tackle him. Or the Steelers didn't want to tackle him. But to make matters worse, it didn't seem like Henry was even running hard at times. It's like he was just playing pinball, in there, just bouncing off of guys. Lamar Jackson had 15 attempts, 81 yards on the night, 5.4 yards per carry. If we were to keep Lamar Jackson to 81 yards, I would say on most days that would be a win. But you can't allow Derrick Henry to have 186 yards. Yeah. The only thing that I don't like about this matchup is the Ravens obviously had a plan in this game. And it's kind of what the Lions do, right? We're going to run it down your throat. And we're going to continue to drag you out into deeper water, right? You pound the rock. What does that do? Well, it's not as difficult on your offensive line in the run game versus pass pro. Pass pro is really difficult on the offensive line. So it keeps them healthier longer. Secondly, pounding the rock against the defense is going to slow them down. It's going to wipe them out quicker. So if you pound the rock like the Ravens did in this game, their number one goal was just to bruise the Steelers and take them into deep water until they were gassed, and then the Ravens could just do what they needed to do to win the game. And you've seen that that's what the Lions have done this season on many occasions. So I don't like that part of it with the Ravens.
Yeah.
And Derrick Henry's a big dude. I mean, taking him down is no easy task.
Nope.
And that's where you got to have many, many, many hats on the ball and play that hive defense that, I've always spoken about. You've got to have all these hats flying to the ball. You've got to keep everybody, in that zone and get everybody on the ball. And it makes it a little bit easier. So Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry combined for 267 rushing yards in the win over the Steelers. And Derrick Henry, like I said, 186. Lamar Jackson had 81. Lamar Jackson was also 16 of 21 for 175 yards and 2 TDs. And they did all this without Zay Flowers.
Yeah.
Zay Flowers was not in the game. The Ravens offense still utilized 2 tight end sets, though, on a season high at 69.4% of plays. Their second straight game over the 60% mark with tight ends. That's something to watch, right? I mean, if they're able to utilize tight ends that much, that's exactly how they're able to run. You're putting in the big jumbo sets, and you're getting these guys out in space with blocking, and they did an excellent job. Russell Wilson collapsed in this game. He looked terrible.
Yeah.
He did have some beautiful balls at time. I will say that. Some of his passes, I mean, they just looked crisp. Like the ball just floats and drops right down. I mean, there were some beautiful passes that he made, but he imploded. He didn't have a good game.
Yeah.
TJ Watt has 17 career sacks against the Ravens, tied with himself against the Browns for the most sacks by any player against the opponent since he entered the league in 2017. How many sacks did he have in that game?
I don't know.
Let me find out here.
Looks like they had 4 total against the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm talking about TJ Watt for the Steelers.
Yeah, they only had 1. So
I don't think he had the sack.
Yeah, so only 1 sack was allowed by the Ravens yesterday, or day before yesterday.
Saturday.
Yeah. I will say this, though. There's a stat that is very, very impressive from the Ravens, and that's the fact that they held the ball for 39 minutes and 33 seconds.
It's crazy.
Almost a full 20 minutes longer. That is incredible ball possession right there.
That's running the ball.
Yep.
I don't know why the sack numbers aren't showing up in this. I mean, maybe I'm just not seeing it.
Yep.
I've got interceptions, forced fumbles, TFLs, quarterback hits. No sacks listed. What is going on here? Interesting. All right, we'll move on. What did you learn about the Bills? Bills game.
Bills game. Holy moly. Oh, remind me who the Bills played again.
Who did they play? The Broncos.
Yeah, the Broncos. That's it. Bo Nix and the Broncos. Man, Bo Nix, he looked good for a little while. And then the Bills were just too much, and they could not overcome.
Well, what it would have been, it had to have another rookie win a playoff game.
Yeah.
A rookie quarterback, I should say.
Yeah, that would have been pretty cool. I don't know as 2 rookie quarterbacks that have ever won a game in the playoffs in the same season. I don't know if that's ever happened.
I doubt it. I highly doubt it.
And listen, Stroud is the first one to, or not, was it Stroud? No, it was Jayden Daniels was the first rookie quarterback to win a road playoff game. That had never been done before. So that would have been the same thing here. And the Bills, they were just too much. 31-7. I'm going to guess that every single stat is in the Bills' favor. And it pretty much was. This game was a dud. It was not fun to watch. I had no skin in the game other than I did have a 4-way parlay, and one of my legs was the Bills to win this game.
Well, here's what I learned. I learned that we know that MVP voting should have been done a long time ago, right?
Yep.
And the MVP chants were ringing high in this game, especially after the game. Now, Josh Allen showed why it was such a tight pick between, according to everybody else but me, him and Lamar Jackson. I don't think either one of them are the winners, and that's not my bias. I still think that Jared Goff belongs there. And I put all that together in a video the other day to explain why. 30
Great
different
video, by the way.
30 different franchise and NFL records that Jared Goff has done this season. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, not even close. Not even close from my opinion, what they've done. Great players, phenomenal athletes, great quarterbacks, did some exceptional things this year, had some exceptional stats at different areas, right, of the stat lines. But for me, it's all about the definition of MVP, which is how valuable you are to your team or a group, right? How valuable you are to an organization. And when you look at what Jared Goff has done, he's gotten better for the last 3 seasons, season over season. I don't care about the 12 interceptions. We know where 5 of them came from. And we know that about 5 of them probably really weren't his fault anyway. And 12 interceptions is not a ton, right? I mean, we've seen way more with Matthew Stafford at the helm. But the point that I'm going to make is go watch the video that I put up about Jared Goff and the MVP, because I think that it will enlighten you a little bit as to why I still feel that Jared Goff is so deserving of that award. Now, if he gets shut out from All-Pro, which is laughable, he should have been at least Team 2. And if he gets shut out from MVP, he better not get shut out from the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And you know what? And that one probably means way more to him, right next to his Super Bowl MVP that he's going to put up on his mantle at the end of the season.
That one's going to be the most important, the Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah. So you can have all the other Tony Awards and participation trophies, but Jared's going to take the real one home this year. Anyway, I got off to a tangent there. Anyway, Allen made some jaw-dropping throws in this game. He really did. It was a hell of a game by Josh Allen. He's clearly shown in this game why he is so beloved by the Bills Mafia and a lot of the pundits around, the league, around the country. Phenomenal athlete. Love everything about Josh Allen as a person, as a human, as a player, as a quarterback. Just a great dude. Had an excellent game, though, and they jumped out quickly on the Broncos and won 31-7. Now, the Bills' victory means there's going to be this epic showdown in the divisional round next week. It's going to be the Bills and the Ravens. Now, will the Bills be able to exact revenge on the Ravens? We'll find out. Now, there was a play in the third quarter that truly exemplified where Allen's game is at right now. On the 4th and short near Denver's end zone, Buffalo decided to go for it. Allen kind of bounced around in the pocket, scanning for a receiver. And then as the pass rush started to close in, it looked like it may be a sack. Didn't happen. It was just at that moment that Allen was able to unfurl a gorgeous pass to the back of the end zone. Running back Ty Johnson, who made an equally amazing catch baseball sliding, managing to keep his feet in bounds, which that was close. And that was their second touchdown of the game together. And the score was, it was all but over at that point, right? The Broncos were out of the game. But that just kind of shows you who Allen is those types of passes, these off-schedule throws where I started to talk about him earlier. That is why I don't really want to see the Bills again, is because he extends plays by getting out of the pocket. He doesn't stay in the pocket. He almost immediately leaves the pocket, and that is why it is so hard to put a pass rush on Allen, because it's your pass rush, it's working in this zone, right? You're not working way out in left field or way out in right field on the boundary. That's not where your pass rush does its work. It does it inside the box. And so when you got a quarterback that just zips out on almost every play, it's impossible to put a pass rush against that. Now, if you can get quick pressure, in under 2.5 seconds or less, then yes, you'll be able to get a couple of sacks. It reminds me of a couple of seasons ago when we had, what's his name? James Houston. He had 2 sacks on Josh Allen, but that's because Josh Allen was a different player back then. He was staying in the box, and James Houston came flying off that wide 9 corner quickly. He got to Allen immediately and almost unblocked, He got around the one tackle pretty quickly too, but Josh Allen's changed his game since then. He's no longer sitting inside that pocket. He's just not. He's getting outside of that pocket quickly and not letting a pass rush get to him. So that's where the containment works, right? You've got to keep Allen contained, and look, the Broncos just couldn't keep him contained. And the Broncos they've had one of the best pass rushes in the league this year. Now they've been utilizing with their outside linebackers. They had 13 and a half and 10 and a half sacks in the regular season, almost 25 sacks between two guys, and they couldn't do anything to Josh Allen. Nothing. So again, I'll highlight it more tonight. Sometimes you just can't use a pass rush against a really good quarterback. It just doesn't work. And it showed itself again as to why. Now, fourth quarter for Allen, it started with another touchdown, and then he connected with Curtis Samuel on that 3rd and 6 for what would have been a first down. But Samuel went one better, spinning out of the tackle and sprinting down to the end zone for a 55-yard touchdown. So the 49ers game, I'm not surprised. I mean, I didn't feel like, the Broncos really had a chance in this game. It was great to see Bo Nix, get his first shot into the playoffs. He's clearly not, happy, with the way the season ended. But I think the sky's the limit for Bo. He had a crazy good season for what he was able to do this year. He should be happy about his season, honestly. Stats last night, real quick, for the Bills. Curtis Samuel had 68. He was 3 of 3. Khalil Shakir was 6 of 6 for 61. Dalton Kincaid was 3 of 3 for 47. Dawson Knox, I'm sorry, I'm saying this backwards. Yeah, Dawson Knox was 2 of 3 for 38. Ty Johnson was 2 of 2 for 26. Matt Collins was 1 of 2 for 19. Amari Cooper, 2 of 3 for 8. Keon Coleman was 1 of 3 for 5. I mean, Allen spread it around to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys last night. 8 guys all touched the ball. He tried to throw it to a couple of others, but James Cook, Ray Davis, didn't happen. On the other side of the ball, Cortland Sutton for the Broncos was 5 of 9 for 75. Troy Franklin was 2 of 3 for 54. Javonte Williams was 2 of 2 for 14. And Marvin Mims was 2 of 4 for 12. And then Adam Trotman was 1 of 1 for 2. And Lucas Kroll was 1 of 1 for 2. So anyway, I guess after going through some of this, what did you learn last night any more about the Bills or Josh Allen that you didn't already know?
Well, I learned that Bo Nix is Josh Allen light. The kid can run around and make things happen with his feet or with his arm. Give him another year or two. He's going to be awesome. And Josh Allen, I just learned Josh Allen is Josh Allen. He does not change from the time he played the Lions until now. Nothing is different. The guy is just an incredible. He's incredible at keeping the ball in possession of the offense and not letting the defense even have a shot. So remember what I told you on that last game about the Ravens holding the ball for 39 minutes. Well, the Bills held it for over 41 minutes in this game. Just absolutely crazy stat. They had it for 41 minutes and 43 seconds. So almost 42 minutes they held the ball. So that means they were running the ball, and they did. So they had 261 yards of rushing they had 210 yards of rushing in this game. And that's just, they are mauling people, and they mauled Denver. So to me, I don't know how the Ravens escape. Did the Ravens and the Bills, they played earlier this year, correct?
I believe so.
I wonder who won that game, because
we can look it up real quick. So
this is going to be a crazy game next weekend, and they play on what, Sunday next week? The AFC?
I don't know. I don't have the schedule in front of me.
Pretty sure the NFC games are on Saturday because the Lions are on Saturday.
So yeah, when you go back and look at their schedule from this season, the Ravens and the Bills played on September 29.
Okay.
And the Ravens won 35-10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And, well, the Chiefs beat the Ravens in the first week, the opening week.
Yep.
Cowboys almost beat the Ravens. The Raiders beat the Ravens. That's crazy.
Yeah, they had some weird fluky.
The Bengals almost beat the Ravens.
Yeah.
The Commanders almost beat the Ravens. The Bucs
Steelers.
were within 10 points.
Steelers got them once, didn't they?
Yes, the Steelers did get them.
Yep.
1 out of 2. So the second game, they obviously they won 34-17. Yeah. So anyway, all right, let's move on to some Lions news. I know we're a little bit late. I'll probably carry over today. I don't know if Eric will stay on the whole time, but I'm gonna carry over today. But we're going to do that. I got to get my voice to reset. We'll be back in 30 seconds. Introducing Better the Hunt Technologies and C3 Mitts, the ultimate hunting and multi-use glove system for hunters and outdoor enthusiasts. Now, C3 Mitts are designed to keep your bare hand protected and warm no matter what the weather throws at you. The patented attachment system was designed to keep your hand on target with the ultimate feel of comfort, confidence, and control. The triple layer barrier of moisture wicking material combined with 200 grams of thin-slit insulation locks in the heat, but not the moisture. That hot hands pocket adds extra heat when the temps dip below freezing. Rain or snow, no problem for C3 Mitts. The durable outer shell is water resistant and windproof, shielding your hands from the elements. C3 Mitts has solved the cold, stiff, and shaky hand syndrome that all hunters have faced, causing you to miss opportunities on your hunt. Whether you're stalking your prey, chopping wood, or simply enjoying a winter's day, C3 Mitts have got you covered. So this winter, keep your hands warm and your adventures going strong with C3 Mitts. C3 Mitts, warmth, comfort, confidence, and control. I guarantee it, or your money back. Make sure you visit c3mitts.com right after the show. All right, Eric, so we had another Detroit Lions coach interviewed. Now, this one was not announced.
No.
It was just kind of popped up, or at least I didn't see it announced.
Yep.
So who was it? What happened this weekend?
So another Detroit Lions assistant coach is getting a chance to potentially climb the coaching ladder with another team. The 49ers special teams assistant coach Jet Modkins for the Detroit Lions interviewed with the San Francisco 49ers for their special teams coordinator opening. Modkins did the interview virtually on Sunday per the 49ers, the son of Vikings running backs coach Curtis Modkins, who also coached in Detroit. Jet Modkins has been with the Lions since the start of the Dan Campbell era in 2021. Some of his duties include working with second-team All-Pro return specialist Khalif Raymond. So he did his interview virtually with the 49ers, and he was the first person to interview for the job. And I don't know how it works with the comp picks, if it's only for head coaching positions, but Modkins is a person of color.
I don't really know how it works either. Well, I mean, I guess I do. If the, this Rooney Rule and these other things that are part of it, so the minority coaches, if they are elevated to a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, GM role, there is a reward by, third round compensatory picks. So the 49ers, interviewing what would be a new special teams coordinator.
Yep.
I would assume that if it's, you got offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator.
Yeah.
I would assume that would meet the threshold, but honestly, without reading the rule right now, I couldn't give you a definitive answer.
Yeah, because he's a special teams assistant and he would be getting a promotion.
Yeah, so the promotion itself to a coordinator position usually meets the threshold, but again, I don't remember reading anything about special teams.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to read it again today. So, I mean, let's just say that it is. I mean, that means if he gets elevated and Aaron Glenn gets elevated, I mean, we could have, 2 third-round picks this year and 2 third-round picks next year.
Wow.
Compensatory picks. And that's where Brad Holmes lives, eats, and breathes, is that third round.
Oh, yeah. And that's something that the 49ers have really done well. They've promoted coaches of color and different ethnicities, and then they've went on to get promotions for other teams. Saleh went from being a defensive coordinator to a head coach, and the coach for the Texans came from the 49ers. So they've, in a sense, made this really awesome coaching tree, and it's really helped their team getting people out there that really need these jobs. It's awesome to see.
See, we have a troll in here that not only put their avatar as a lion, but named their channel the Detroit Soft Motor Kitties Overrated. I mean, you really put a lot of work into it. I mean, I guess congratulations on that, but without knowing what team you're a part of, which I have a feeling it's probably your boy.
That is quite the blue little kitten you have as your avatar there. I like that.
Yeah, but that's probably what's his name, Broski Bear.
Oh yeah,
that's probably who it is.
I don't care. It's funny.
All right, so here we go. 49ers, they fired Brian Schneider.
Yep.
When this was announced, when was this? This was announced 13 hours ago. So they fired Brian Schneider yesterday. And then they completed the interview with Jet Modkins, who's the son of Curtis Modkins, which is the current run game coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings, who was also the 49ers offensive coordinator in 2016 under then head coach Chip Kelly, which means the 49ers should be a familiar fit with Jet, or at least it's a familiar family fit, if you will.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And again, too, there was someone else in the chat here that had a really good point. It was, who was it that just said it? Something about Dave Phipp. I think it was Michael Lukes. The Phipp doesn't want to become a head coach, so I don't think this hurts too much. He just wants to be here and probably isn't going anywhere anytime soon. I would agree with all that. We've heard Phipp say that he's comfortable in his position. So as long as we keep Phipp, we're good. I think we're good there as far as coordinators go. I mean, we can't lose them all, right? I mean, we can, but hopefully we don't.
It's crazy how many just Lions staff are being interviewed. I know we're not going to lose them all, or maybe we will, but it's just crazy to see. I don't think I've ever seen a potential offseason like this with so many people interviewed for other jobs.
Well, next up, we're going to be talking about the replacements for Ben Johnson, as well as going through the head coaching updates on what's going around. Since the weekend is now closed, the first round of interviews have been done. And here's your update. We'll do replacements after this. This is kind of a longer segment. One second here. Some setting in my OBS is preventing me from doing something, but now I'm almost good. There we go. Okay, head coaching updates after round one. We're going to rank the teams that are now likely to hire Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. So here's what we learned. Ben Johnson, now with Mike Vrabel and the Patriots position off the board, it does remove one of the four potential job landing spots for Johnson. He interviewed with the Bears, the Patriots, and the Raiders. He interviewed with the Bears, the Patriots, the Raiders, and the Jags. And so now it's down to just three, which is the Raiders, the Jags, and the Bears. Aaron Glenn, on the other side, he declined to interview with the Patriots, so that was never an option for him. And Glenn is still in the play for all five teams that he has interviewed with. Now, Thursday, he met with the New York Jets and the New Orleans Saints. And the Las Vegas Raiders were on Friday. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Chicago Bears were yesterday. Now, NFL Network's Tom Pelissero had reported on Saturday that Aaron Glenn is one of the hottest candidates during the current hiring cycle, and the Jets are considered a potential destination. Quote, keep an eye on the Jets as a possibility for Aaron Glenn. He played for that team. My understanding is he had a really strong interview. Expect him to be in the mix, though worth noting that the New York Jets is still going through about 20 different interviews for that job. That was quoted by Tom Pelissero from this weekend. Now, ESPN's Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler also reported on Thursday of last week that Glenn, quote, still seems like the favorite, end quote, for the New Orleans Saints vacancy, as he was part of that team's staff for 5 seasons as a defensive backs coach before joining the Lions. Now, I'm going to make 2 statements before we kind of roll into this. One, about the Saints. If you remember, Aaron Glenn came to the mic a couple weeks ago when that whole thing happened in New Orleans, and he wanted to make sure that, he put out good, kind words and praises and all of that, prayers, all that for the New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans city, the people that live there. And I think that he did that out of just being genuine Aaron Glenn. He's also very tied to that city because he did spend so much time into that city. And I think that his heart is still there. So I would say that I do believe the Saints are a viable option. I think it's an option that makes sense. But there's going to be something that I'm going to point to that maybe it doesn't make sense, and that Aaron Glenn is more of a Jets head coach candidate, especially if Chris Spielman still ends up there. I mean, it almost makes perfect sense. So here's what I'm going to walk into first. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Why or why not do any of these teams make sense, for Ben or Aaron Glenn? We'll start with the Jags. So the Jags have 10 picks in the 2025 draft. It includes 6 picks in the first 4 rounds and 5 in the top 105. Sounds eerily similar to where the Lions were just a few seasons ago. Now, according to Over the Cap, Jacksonville has currently $27.9 million in effective cap space this offseason. Now, that should rise probably to around 55-ish million. And with where they're picking right now, I would say that they're probably going to spend about $18 million on their draft class, which is going to leave them roughly $36 million-ish, probably somewhere in that range, I would say, to be able to spend this season. Given the history of what Dan Campbell has done and what Brad Holmes have done, I expect both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn to be very frugal in their first year, as long as they have some sort of a say in what happens with the draft and free agency and how to rebuild the team, especially if they have a general manager installed that they agree with the plan. Because if you go back and look at what the Lions did, they brought in a bunch of 1 years, right? One and dones. And there's a reason why they did that. So when everyone else is crying for, we need this player or that player, or we need TJ Watt or this guy, or, Montez Sweat, or, whomever, you know what I'm saying? Like, we want all these high expensive players, but there's a reason why the Lions started with one and dones. They did not want to commit to anybody long-term, number one. Number two, they needed to get rid of all of the dead cap, which was the most important thing, which they finally got rid of, I think, at the end of 2022. And they needed to rebuild, right, their cap space, as well as do well in the draft. So that's the same type of blueprint I feel like Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson are going to play here, is they're going to bring in a lot of one and dones. They're going to get in these players that, maybe they're a little bit older vets. Maybe there's some unproven, 4, 5, 6 year, guys in the league that kind of limping around the league that just need a home, that still have something left to give. And those are going to be the kind of players that these guys bring in to fill out the base of their roster. Now, the Jaguars took a step backward in 2024, right? They finished 4-13, but they also earned the 5th overall pick. Very, very attractive to any incoming head coach. Obviously, it cost Doug Peterson his job. Now, Jacksonville struggled defensively despite having some talent like Josh Allen, pass rusher, Travon Walker, pass rusher, and finished with the 27th ranked scoring defense and second to last in yards prevented. The secondary is a hodgepodge of players who really could use some coaching, but at the same time, they need personnel, right? They're missing guys. They need some upgrades. And to run an Aaron Glenn style of defense, I feel like they're going to upgrade these positions right away if they can. Having the 5th pick doesn't hurt. Now, the Jaguars have a quarterback already in Trevor Lawrence, so they don't really need to worry about spending a bunch of money up front on a quarterback. They don't have to worry about a high draft pick. Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson will be able to attack this draft with key positional players and not have to worry about a quarterback. So you also have Brian Thomas Jr. on the offensive side. So they have 2 keys already on one side of the football, and they have at least 2 keys on the defensive side of the football with their edge rushers in Josh Allen and Travon Walker. So in my opinion, for where these guys are slated to go, I would say for Aaron Glenn, you know what? I'll get to my rankings at the end. I'll get to my rankings at the end. Now I'm going to go through Chicago real quick. Now, according to Over the Cap, the Bears have $54 million in effective cap space. That's a good number. That should rise to about $75 to $79 million. Yeah, this is in 2025, right? So to go along with 8 draft picks in 25, the Bears will select 10th in the first round, and they will also choose 39th and 41st in the second round and 72nd in the third round, giving them 4 picks in the top 72. Again, very attractive to an incoming head coach. The Bears finished 5-12. They had a 10-game losing streak when the Lions had an 11-game winning streak. Just had to rub that in. The wheels finally came off in Detroit, though, on Thanksgiving. That led to Matt Eberflus to get flushed and fired. The Bears' defense was a large part of the preseason optimism. But again, both Eric and I, standing here on our own 2 feet, have told everybody from the very beginning, you can't buy a team. It just doesn't work. So you buy all these defensive players. You've got all these pass rushers and outside linebackers and inside line. It doesn't work. You need to build from within. You have to build these guys through the draft, and then you can bring some guys in at some point that can help get you over the hump. But you have to build that internal flame first, and that's what Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have done so well with. Now, they still have some talent on the defensive side of the ball, right? They still have Montez Sweat. They have Jalen Johnson. They have Kyler Gordon. Caleb Williams obviously did not have a great rookie season. I mean, pass yards, sure. But other than that, the number 1 overall pick really did not look great, in my opinion. Clearly, my choice was Jayden Daniels, and that was the right pick. He did showcase some talent in flashes, but is he good enough? I don't know. Does he just need a good quarterback whisperer? Maybe. But he has really good receiving options in 25 with DJ Moore and the rookie from this season, Rome Odunze. And the offensive line obviously needs a major upgrade, and their running back room with Swift obviously is going to have to get elevated. Is this a great spot for Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson? We're going to find out here at the end. Now, before I get into the Las Vegas Raiders, is there anything you want to add to the Jags or the Bears?
Well, the Jets. First, somebody asked in the chat, what about Rex? Well, it came out, I think, yesterday or the day before that the Jets are out on Rex.
Okay. Yeah, I was asking if you had anything on the Bears or the Jags. Anything on the Bears or the Jags?
Well, the Bears, listen, if I told you that tomorrow you are the GM of the Bears, you are the new GM of the Bears, what are you going to do in the draft? If I was the new GM of the Bears tomorrow, in the draft, I'm drafting with those first 4 picks in the top 72, offensive linemen, offensive linemen, offensive linemen, offensive linemen. Whoever's the top 4 rated offensive linemen, that's who I'm getting. They don't need anything else. They need an offensive line. That is where that team is lacking so much. Caleb Williams was the number 1 sacked quarterback in the league this year. He's elusive. He can get around. And he was still the most sacked quarterback this season. That just tells you that his offensive line was Swiss cheese. So if I was the new GM of the Bears, I would be going after offensive linemen. So I don't know that job. It looks enticing, but you have to remember who the GM is and who ownership is of the Bears and what they've done in the past. They would have to come up with one heck of a plan to get Ben Johnson to actually take that job.
Yeah.
Right now, I think the Jags would be much more appealing for Ben Johnson. That's where he's from. That is someplace that his family would probably want to go. No taxes. And I just believe that they have they're a little higher with the talent that's on that team. I think they're a little more ready, set to go for Ben Johnson and his style of offense.
So to answer Peter Van Larhoven's question in the chat here, so I've been very high on Ray Agnew. I thought that Ray Agnew was a slam dunk, obviously, for a GM position this year. So to answer your question, any news on Agnew? None. But honestly, when you sit back and think about it, he's kind of a product right now of not enough GM openings. Now, there's a couple that have not been fired yet that maybe if Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson want their own GM, there's still a potential for him. But the fact that there's only a couple of GM jobs open right now, I think that he's kind of a product of, there's just not enough openings. Maybe next year, there's still hope for this year. I think that whoever gets Ray Agnew is going to get a steal of a GM because he's been training, obviously, with Brad Holmes. He's been instrumental, as Brad Holmes' right-hand man here. You can't undersell Ray Agnew. I think that Ray Agnew is a slam dunk for any team that gets him. But more so, he would be with an Aaron Glenn or a Ben Johnson at his side. So let's get into the Raiders real quick. Now, the Raiders have 10 draft picks, including the number 6 pick this year. They also have a total of four picks in the top 73. A 5th pick at 106. And according to Over the Cap, get this, the Raiders have the second most effective cap space at $85.7 million. Now, that's going to grow to over $100 million when the league adds their annual bump. So the Raiders will also be hiring a new GM, as we heard last week. So the Raiders, they also finished 4-13. And in 2024, after an underwhelming season by nearly all standards, without a legit option at quarterback, the offense struggled outside of rookie tight end Brock Bowers, who finished as a first-team All-Pro. And the rest of the offensive talent remains to really be desired outside a solid offensive line. Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew were likely stopgap options at quarterback, while the rest of the receiver core of Trey Tucker and Jacoby Myers, they're okay, but nothing really to write home about right now. They have some options. They have some talent. They definitely have some good depth pieces if they ended up being depth pieces. Now, defensively, the Raiders had several injuries this season. Players like Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins. The back seven led a league average passing defense, but players like linebacker Robert Spillane, corner Jack Jones, and safety Trevon Moehrig, they're all going to be free agents this season. So, ton of money in Las Vegas for the Raiders. Plenty of draft picks, 10, including 5 in the top 106, 4 in the top 73. This is probably the most attractive team by my standards, my opinion. This is the team that I would pick just from the simple standpoint. They have Brock Bowers. Ben Johnson, we know, loves tight ends. But more importantly, they have all the picks. They have a ton of money, and they're ready to go. They have a few pieces here and there, but it's going to be like a quick rebuild, if you will. Put some players in the first year. I'd say by year 3, if the Raiders aren't winning at a high level, depending on who they install as the head coach, I would be very surprised. Of course, the GM is going to make the difference too. Lastly here, we got the Jets and the Saints. Now, the New York Jets, obviously it's a no for Ben, but it's a yes for Aaron Glenn, right now. The Jets own 8 picks in the 25 draft, including the 7th pick. And like the other teams mentioned, they don't have anything unique with their draft picks. According to Over the Cap, the Jets have $15.3 million in effective cap space. That's not enough money, in my opinion. The Jets also will be hiring a new general manager. I think the biggest problem the Jets have is, Aaron Rodgers. Last season, if you remember, at one point it was reported that Aaron Rodgers was going to get paid $100 million in 2024. Now, they renegotiated that contract. But the fact that they only have $15.3 million this year, that is not enough to even sign their rookie draft class right now. How are they going to be able to keep their head above water is the question. I think that they're going to be in some trouble. Now, everything that could have gone wrong for the Jets the last 2 seasons has. It started with, obviously, the Achilles injury to Aaron Rodgers, and then the injury led to, New York largely trying to run it back in 24, but couldn't. The offense was still bad, even without Zach Wilson. And the defense took a massive step back in 2024. They led to a 5-12 finish. The Jets will likely have a new quarterback next year, along with having, well, really to retool the entire team, parts of the offensive line and the skill positions. They have depth behind receiver Garrett Wilson, or they're going to need depth behind Garrett Wilson. They have a solid 1-2 punch out of the backfield with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. I think that's an amazing backfield to work with. And then defensively, look, the Jets really went backwards. I mean, they have Sauce Gardner, but after struggling to replace key contributors that they lost in free agency, I mean, there's kind of a treasure trove of talent. I mean, they've got Quinnen Williams. I mean, who wouldn't want Quinnen Williams? They've got Sauce Gardner. They've got Quincy Williams at linebacker position. They've got Jamian Sherwood as an edge rusher and Will McDonald. I'm sorry, they have Jamian Sherwood and edge rusher Will McDonald. Will McDonald is one of my favorites coming out of the draft. So is the Jets still a front runner for Aaron Glenn? I think it is, but I think it is so dysfunctional and they are so screwed up. I don't know. But is that a better option than the Saints? Well, according to Over the Cap, the Saints have a negative $57.8 million cap space today entering the offseason. New Orleans has 9 draft picks, including the number 9 overall and the 5 in the top 110. They also have an extra 4th round pick at 127. Now, realistically, the Saints have some assets to move around the board. But I guess, how do I put this? They were the second team to fire their coach midseason, right? They already knew what was going to happen. The Saints started 2-0, but then they just fizzled out, finished 5-12. After most of the offensive players got hurt, though, if you remember, the Saints were in kind of a very similar position to the Lions, where we're losing a ton of defensive players. They were losing a ton of offensive players. Spencer Rattler finished the season at quarterback and did not have, top receiving options like Chris Olave or Rashid Shaheed available. Alvin Kamara was very steady. And again, before he got hurt, they had a good tight end in Taysom Hill too. So defensively, the front 7 has an aging talent in Cam Jordan and Demario Davis, along with Carl Granderson and Pete Werner. They traded Marshawn Lattimore, but have 2 young corners in Alante Taylor and Kool-Aid McKinstry. If you remember Kool-Aid from last season, some of us were pretty high on Kool-Aid last year. So my question now is, I thought Aaron Glenn would be a front runner for the Saints job simply because of the connections. And that's where I started with in the beginning of this is, he comes to the mic and he, gives his praises to New Orleans simply because he's a good dude. But I also feel like he's trying to, create that connection again. Now I'm not so sure. How do you dig out from a negative 57.8 effective cap space? So even when the NFL, adds their $25 million bump this year or whatever it's going to be, you have to be under the cap before the new league year. So what does that mean? You're going to have to cut a ton of people, a ton of players, and you're probably going to lose, quite a few good players. But more importantly, you're going to have to restructure a lot of contracts, as I'm sure they're probably trying to do now. So here's my ranks. Now, the Detroit Free Press, they listed Jags as number 1, the Bears as number 2, and the Raiders as number 3 for Ben Johnson. The Raiders fall to last because of their quarterback situation. The Bears on offense, the talent is there with former number 1 overall pick Caleb Williams at quarterback and 2 good receivers under contract in DJ Moore and Roma Dunze. But defensively, the group fell as the season went along, but the talent on that side of the football with players such as Montez Sweat, Jalen Johnson, and Kyler Gordon are still attractive enough, right? And then the Jags, like I said earlier, they own the 5th pick, and there is talent on both sides of the football. The team has money. Overall, they still have too many holes. Trevor Lawrence, does he still have the pedigree to be a top quarterback in the NFL? I don't know. Maybe. It's going to take the right coach. But the number 1 option there is Brian Thomas Jr. And the defense still has 2 good edge rushers, right? Josh Allen, Trevon Walker. So my question is, where do these teams line up, Eric? I mean, so let's start with Ben Johnson. Where do you think, if you're going to go 1, 2, and 3, Raiders, Jags, Bears, Bears, Jags, Raiders, Jags, Bears, Raiders, where are you at for Ben Johnson? Where do you think he fits the most?
The Raiders' job is going to be the most appealing. They're making the hardest run at him. Tom Brady is now a minority owner with the Raiders, and he is absolutely enamored with Ben Johnson. And I believe that he is going to do anything he can to get Ben Johnson to come there. So I'm going to say, as of right now, it's Raiders first, Jags second, and then Bears in third place.
So you went Raiders, Jags, Bears?
Yeah. Even though I do believe he's going to end up a Jaguar.
Okay. So quick shout out to Ryan Van Valkenburg. He says, so if Ben goes to the Raiders, he would do a Stafford type trade with Lions for Crosby. So it's interesting you say that. I'm sure you listened, last week when I was talking about this, but I mentioned that same thing. I said, so, okay, is Max Crosby safe? As a Raider, when a new incoming head coach and the GM comes in, they're going to want to liquidate. They're going to want to gain some draft capital. And you're exactly right. This is a Stafford type of trade. And that's where I said, okay, does Max come to Detroit? The answer is still no. Max is not coming to Detroit, but that doesn't mean that Max isn't going to get traded. And I know that there was some people that, made some videos after we spoke about that in the morning show, and that's okay. But I'm not going to drive this narrative that we're going to be buying these $25 and $30 million edge rushers or trading multiple first-round picks or a first and a second-round pick for a guy that, come on, you could pick up somebody in the draft and he'll be, decent in a couple seasons, hopefully, right? I just don't think the Lions are ever going to do that. Brad Holmes is never going to be the guy that says, F them picks. I want to pay this guy $30 million and give up my future for one season. He's never going to do that. In the day that he starts doing that, we need to start worrying about Brad Holmes because what he's done so far has been perfect. I don't think that he's going to change who he is, just like Dan Campbell's not going to change the identity of this team. I think it's that simple. So to follow up here, where do I have Ben Johnson? So initially I had him as a Jag. Did the video talking about him going to the Jags. I still think it makes sense too, to your point, Eric. I still think that it makes a lot of sense. However, I did this video this weekend about Tom Brady and Ben Johnson and how this is a crazy connection. It just hit me yesterday. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second here, hold the phone. You put Tom Brady and Ben Johnson in the same room, and it doesn't matter if he's a minority owner. Doesn't matter if he's a majority owner. Tom Brady is pulling the strings in Vegas right now. I guarantee it. He will be involved some way, shape, or form. He's not going to be a coach. He's not going to be the GM. But I guarantee you Tom is going to be involved as long as he wants to be. And I assume that Ben or whomever gets the job is going to know that Tom is available. You're telling me right now, and I don't know who, would think otherwise, that you put Ben and Tom in the same room, be one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, who's seen just about every defense possible, has read every defense, has gone up against every coach in the NFL, and some of the newer coaches, DCs, OCs in the NFL right now, he's been there, done it. And you put him in with a mastermind like Ben Johnson? I don't know how you wouldn't have the best offense, period, in a very short order, as long as you nailed the draft. I think that it is a perfect marriage between Ben Johnson and Tom Brady, or Ben Johnson going to the Raiders, for many reasons, right? But the first and foremost is the Tom Brady connection. But secondly, 10 draft picks, including the number 6 pick, that gets you somewhere pretty quick. And they also have $85.7 million in cap space right now. Mm-hmm. And they have Max Crosby on the defensive side of the football. So, yeah, could you trade Max and gain a couple of more, first and a second round? If they did that this year, the Raiders will be competing probably this next season. I said 3 seasons, but it'll probably be this season that they could be competing, and next season really compete. Right? I think that there's definitely an opportunity for that. So Ben Johnson right now, I think, is a lock to go to the Raiders. I think he's a lock. So it's Raiders, Jags, and Bears for me on Ben Johnson. Raiders, Jags, and Bears. So the harder one is Aaron Glenn. And I guess you have to look at it this way too. What are teams looking for? Are they looking for a defensive coach? Or are they looking for an offensive coach? I think the Raiders are looking for an offensive coach. Aaron Glenn. So we know that we have the Raiders, the Saints, the Jags, the Bears, and the Jets all involved for Aaron Glenn. Now, Freep has Glenn listed as Jets, Saints, Bears, Jags, Raiders. And in 2025, Glenn will be coaching the Jets. That's who the Detroit Free Press thinks, that Glenn is the right type of person for the Jets and would desperately, or he would fix the culture that is in desperate need of an overhaul, and has the added benefit of playing for the franchise for the first 8 years of his career. And he's a defensive-minded coach, which is what the Jets would be looking forward to because, well, their defense honestly has more opportunity than their offense right now. So what do you think about Aaron Glenn and his opportunities here? Where do you think he goes?
I honestly think he goes to the Saints. It's between the Saints and the Jets. And the only way I could see him going to the Jets is if Chris Spielman gets the GM job for the Jets first, and he would have Aaron Glenn's ear. And I think that's about the only way he ends up going to the Jets. I truly believe that it's going to be Aaron Glenn to the Saints. And it's going to be Ben Johnson is going to go to the Raiders, most likely.
So where did you have Aaron rank? So you had the Saints as the number one option?
Yeah.
And what else for the Jets, the Raiders, the Jags, and the Bears?
Right in that order, exact order.
I'm sorry. So I just spit him out. I don't remember what I said. So I said Jets.
Yeah. Jets would be the
Raiders
second, and then
Jags,
Raiders,
Bears.
Jags, and then the Bears. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So again, this is a tough one for me to really consider. Initially, I thought that the Jets were the home run. And I still kind of feel like that is a home run just because of the connection. But then I started thinking, it's a mess. Like over there, it's a mess in New York. It's a giant mess. You got to deal with this whole Aaron Rodgers thing. Woody, the grandkids. I mean, it's a mess in New York. Could Aaron Glenn go out there and just take this no bullshit
Everyone wants to be a dog until you got to do some dog shit.
in New York and just handle it? Probably. But I think a better fit for him is probably the Saints. The next biggest question is he willing to walk into an organization that has no money in 25, or at least yet in 2020? Is he willing, are the Saints willing to be patient? Because that is the key to building a team, is patience. It's not come out the gate, spend $100 million on all of these expensive players and build a team, trying to build an all-star roster, and then hit the ground running and you win a bunch of ball games. Hardly ever works. Never works, honestly. Maybe a good season, but then after that, you're like, you got all these bills to pay. You can't afford anyone, and you're right back into a dumpster fire. And then the coach is walking out the door the next season. So if you're going to be patient, I think that Aaron Glenn could probably sell the Saints on this. Look, you're in a shit situation. You're feeding me a shit sandwich with no money, but we've got some draft picks, and I think we have an idea of how we can turn this around. I think it's the Saints. I think when the Saints go marching in, it's going to be with Aaron Glenn. Honestly. The Jets make more sense fiscally. They make more sense, from the standpoint that they have some good draft picks and they have more on both sides of the ball. But something tells me that the Saints are just the right pick for him. But I still put the Jets as the number one spot. And I'm going to switch that today. So I'm going to go Saints. And then I'm going to go Jets. And then I'm going to go Raiders. Now, I will say this about the Raiders. I feel if Ben Johnson goes to the Jags, Aaron Glenn's going to go to Vegas, possibly. Even though the Raiders are probably looking for that offensive-minded coach. I think the Jags are definitely looking for an offensive-minded coach. They've come out and said as much. And I think the Bears are looking for an offensive-minded coach because of Caleb Williams. And I think that the Jets and the Saints can do better with a defensive-minded coach just because of their identity of where it's been. So that's where I'm at. I think it's the Saints. I think it's the Jets, and then the Raiders for Aaron Glenn. I think if Ben somehow ends up a Jag, you could still see Aaron Glenn possibly taking the brightest option possible, which is a lot of money, a lot of draft picks, Tom Brady on the offensive side of the football that can help you, develop the offensive side of the football if needed. Not saying that Tom Brady is going to be involved in pulling strings and telling people what to do. I don't think that at all. I think that he's just going to be an influence as a constructive consultant, if you will. I don't think that he's going to be, just telling guys I got to do this or else. I don't think that's Tom Brady's way. I don't think Tom Brady is wanting to be that involved to the point that he's pissing everybody off. So anyway, that's really it. Tonight we'll be on, or at least I'll be on tonight. We'll be talking about sacks versus turnovers. What happened in this weekend's game? And I think that I might match this up with watching the Minnesota Vikings game tonight. We'll kind of do it live, just hanging out. Or I'll do it before that, kind of do a pregame warm-up. We'll do the show, and then we'll roll into the game tonight. But I want to talk about sacks versus turnovers, what it means, what it meant this weekend, and what does it mean for the playoffs and Super Bowl winning teams. I think you guys are going to be surprised. I've talked about this before in the past. But now that we're actually in the playoffs, now we can see what the stats really tell us. Eric, what's your final 30 on the day?
Well, if I can I have a couple minutes?
You can have as many minutes as you need.
All right. Well, the Detroit News just released a story, and I'm a big part of it. And I'm going to read some of it if you don't mind. So this is in quotations, and this is from Frank Donnelly. He's been interviewing me over the last couple of weeks, and here we go. If our defense can play that lights out in the playoffs, we'll be Super Bowl champions, exclaimed Eric Runtemacki. Runtemacki, 49 of Brimley in the Upper Peninsula, had predicted all of this before the season began. He looked at the Lions' schedule and pronounced they would achieve a record of 15-2. The Lions' record today is 15-2. The football Nostradamus attended 15 of the 17 games, missing 2 because of shoulder surgery. He's easy to spot. The first thing you notice is his long, dyed Honolulu blue beard, or maybe his $400 custom-made necklace with the illuminated Lions logo, or maybe it's his cap and his suit jacket festooned with game pins and buttons from every stadium he's visited. It's definitely not because of his Lions undergarments, which unfortunately are kept out of sight. Still, TV cameras love him. I can't say enough good things about the turnaround we've had, said the blue-spattered Blue Brummel. This is our year. Matt Shaw is Runtemacki's opposite. He never thought this type of season was possible. Shaw, 60 of Burton, isn't trying to be a nabob of negativity. It's just that he's been a Lions fan for a good while, and during that time, the Super Bowl seemed more imaginary than real. And then it goes on to talk about a bunch of other Lions fans. So this was all about Lions fans and what their expectations were for this year. My expectations were 15-2, win the North, get the number 1 seed, and win the Super Bowl. So
this is in the Detroit News, right?
In the Detroit News today, yeah.
So I've got a bone to pick with the Detroit News because I have 2 subscriptions.
Yeah.
And I can't log in.
Is it the Free Press or the News?
I've got both. And I thought when you have one, you have the other, but I have both. And I've got 2. Like when I go to the site, it tells me to subscribe every time because I'm trying to pull it up so I can just put it on the damn screen.
Yeah.
All right. So did it just come out?
Yeah. Came out this morning. Have a picture of me in the middle of the article. The same
sports side, or where is it?
It's in sports. It's called Detroit Lions Fans Impossible Dream Keeps Getting More Probable.
I don't see it.
My part's about halfway down when you find it.
You must be on the back page.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all digital now anyway.
I can't find it. What's the writer's name?
His name is Francis X. Donnelly. So
Donnelly.
Frank Donnelly. Yeah. Donnelly.
Well, what the hell?
Yeah, it was published at 11:01 p.m. January 12th. Updated 2:50 a.m. January 13th.
Can you send me the link?
Let's see here.
Yeah, just go to the top and right-click the URL, copy it, and then put it in the Google Doc.
Oh shit! I'm on a different computer.
You can email it to me.
Yeah, I can do it.
All right. Well, anyway, I'll highlight it tonight. We'll do a video or something on it. But anyway, it's pretty cool that you were able to get the interview done. I think it's awesome. Whittier is involved as a fan as we are. I think that it's pretty incredible that you actually get some really good takes from some really good fans. And the fact that the Detroit News is highlighting Eric, I think it just epitomizes who he is as a person and as a fan. Eric has been the roses and rainbows all season long, right? That's who he is. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm more of the raw and the realistic.
My friends that like go to the games with me and I watch the games with them, my buddies Rafe and Bob, they make fun of me every year because I am roses and rainbows.
Rafe and Bob sounds like some grimy cartoon story.
They are. They both are. Oh man.
Rafe
Yeah, they've
and
been
Bob.
they were high school buddies. I met Rafe. His real name's Robert, but everybody calls him Rafe. And I met him through working at the casino years and years and years ago. And Bob was his best friend from high school. And he's like, dude, come over to the shed and watch the game with us. So I went over and watched the game with them, and I've been doing it ever since.
All right. Well, we'll highlight this later on today. I think it's pretty cool. Congratulations on getting that done.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Oh, hopefully you passed along the information for the podcast so that he can get that one done next. All right, you guys have a wonderful day. We'll catch you later on tonight. So just look for the pop-up or the thumbnail to get generated. It'll be generated a little bit later. So you guys have a wonderful day. Go on Pride. Go Detroit Lions. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning, but I'll see you back here tonight. Take care.
Kids and voices rising high. Every morning, feel that passion, they fly. Talking about the Lions, blue and silver pride. With the podcast, we're rolling, take that ride. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Yeah. Football dreams in every shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight. Each play, each kick, we feel alive, alive. Echoes in the city as the fans arrive. At heart of the motor, in the screen, we're bound together by a football dream. Rise and grind, Detroit is calling out. Yeah, football dreams.
Season is here, and you want the latest news and rumors on your Detroit Lions. Head to sportspider.com. That's sports, SPYDER.com, where you can get your Lions news and all your sports in one place. Man, this site is packed with your favorite podcasts, live news, articles from local writers, and insiders, all updating in real time. Not just the Lions, every major sports team, including MMA, UFC, and so much more. Don't want to waste time searching? Sign up for free. Create your ultimate sports news hub. You control what hits your feed at SportsSpider, your #1 source for all your sports. Visit SportsSpider.com today.